we're on to the final session, and it goes to the core of our conversations. It's all about action. We believe thought leadership without action is wasted potential. So coming up are details of the latest call to action. Do share your thoughts in the Q&A function on Zoom. Sharing the details is Dr. Herlina Hartanto from Yayasan Konservasi Alam Nusantara.
Through the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate change, drastic acts should be made by all countries to limit the warming temperature to 2 degrees Celsius. It is to prevent the loss of biodiversity, rising sea levels, wildfire, and other extreme events. To keep the planet inhabitable, transformational actions are needed to cut the rapidly increasing greenhouse gas emission rate. A global conservation research led by the Nature Conservancy in 2017 suggested that the target to reduce 1/3 of the global emissions can be achieved by implementing what is increasingly known as Natural Climate Solutions, or NCS. NCS are a suite of conservation, restoration, and improved land management actions that increase carbon storage or avoid greenhouse gas emissions in landscapes and wetlands across the globe. Indonesia has cost-effective NCS potential of up to 1.4 gigatons carbon dioxide per year, the highest among other tropical countries. And half of this amount could come from wetlands, such as mangroves. A quarter of the world's mangrove estate is located in Indonesia, spread across 3.5 million hectares. It contains 3.14 billion metric tons of carbon, equal to 1/3 of global carbon stocks from the coastal regions. Mangroves are highly productive ecosystems and effective climate mitigation tool that can grow in a low-nutrient environment. On top of that, mangroves also protect coastal areas from sea level rise, storm surges, tsunamis, and erosion. They also serve as breeding and nursing grounds for diverse aquatic and terrestrial species, a vital role that made them known as supermarkets of the sea. Despite the significant emission reduction potentials from its mangrove forests, Indonesia's mangroves ecosystems are still declining. Over the past 3 decades, Indonesia has lost 40% of its mangroves due to forest conversion to aquaculture, agriculture, and urban infrastructure. Research has shown that stopping mangrove deforestation can potentially contribute to lowering the annual national emission by 10 to 31%. As part of natural climate solutions, mangroves is the key to avoid catastrophic climate change impact globally. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. We are living with its impacts, right here and right now.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here with you all today. The video we just saw emphasized the importance of protecting and conserving mangroves. Although they play important roles in combating climate change and serving as supermarkets of the sea, mangrove forests across the world are disappearing very fast. Globally, 50% of the total mangroves have been lost, and only 7% of the remaining mangroves are under protections. Similar situation is found in Indonesia. Over 30% of the total mangroves have been lost over the last 3 decades due to logging, their conversions to aquaculture, agriculture, and infrastructure. Stopping annual mangrove loss in Indonesia is equal to removing 14,000 to 41,000 passengers vehicles off the road for 1 year. For those reasons, my organization, Yayasan Konservasi Alam Nusantara, has been supporting the government and working with other key stakeholders in protecting and restoring mangroves in Indonesia. We are an Indonesian non-profit organization established in 2014 with a mission to conserve and protect lands and water. We are the main partner of the Nature Conservancy, a science-based organization experienced in advancing conservation throughout the world since 1951. We have over 100 staff and has been implementing forestry and oceans conservation program in 10 provinces in Indonesia. And we are fortunate to have Mr. Sarwono Kusumatmaja in our board. To protect and restore mangroves in Indonesia, we are forging an alliance called the Mangrove Ecosystem Restoration Alliance, or MERA. MERA is a multi-stakeholder platform that focuses on developing models and knowledge to protect and restore mangroves, to reduce the vulnerability of coastal communities, protect biodiversity, and contribute to climate change mitigations and adaptations. MERA aims to contribute to the government of Indonesia's effort by help restoring and sustainably managing 500,000 hectares of mangroves by 2025. Since 2018, we have brought together key government agencies and 4 main corporate partners: Asia Pulp and Paper Sinarmas, Chevron Pacific Indonesia, Jarum, and Indofood Sukses Makmur. We are also working with different Indonesian ministries, particularly the Ministry of Environment and Forestry and the Peatland and Mangrove Restorations Agency. In protecting and restoring mangroves, we collect and analyze scientific data to inform mangrove restorations designs, build local capacity, build awareness through strategic campaign, and ensure replicability by synthesizing and sharing lessons learned. MERA is currently operating in 3 locations: Jakarta and Semarang in Java, and Riau in Sumatra. In those locations, we have produced mangrove restorations plan. In Semarang, we are improving local economy by, among others, building a model for sustainable aquaculture that has proven to at least double shrimp pond productivity, enabling larger degraded mangrove forests to be restored. In Jakarta, we are supporting the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in restoring mangroves and building a mangrove education center in Muara Angke Wildlife Reserve. And we are currently in the process of expanding MERA to Oki Regency in South Sumatra. I will close by urging everyone to take part in protecting and restoring mangroves. We often hear the phrase, think globally, act locally. Each of us should continue caring for the environment, greening our lifestyle, speaking up for nature, and taking actions in our own communities and cities. However, many of us have the capacity and resources to support efforts beyond our own localities, and the MERA partners do exactly that. And we will hear about their aspirations in the next video. Thank you.
Kalau saya pribadi melihatnya itu yang paling besar kontribusinya nanti bukan di secara fisik mangrove-nya, tapi secara education sehingga generasi selanjutnya bisa menghargai ini, mencintai ini, dan mau terlibat.
Kami juga berharap dari peranan kami ini semakin banyak lagi sektor-sektor swasta ingin terlibat dalam upaya pelestarian lingkungan ini.
Dan semestinya memang public-private partnership dan government itu menjadi satu upaya kolaborasi yang saling menguntungkan. Dan membangun satu upaya perbaikan lingkungan kecil tetapi sangat powerful.
Now, thank you for that presentation, Dr. Herlina. And before we talk more about the amazing work that you do on mangrove conservation, I'd like to share with our audience the calls to action QR code. You can find out more details on the calls by simply scanning the QR code. Do support and join us on our efforts. So, okay, Dr. Herlina, let's find out more.
Sure. So happy to see you, Jennifer.
So happy to see you, Ibu. Now, you have got tremendous ambitions. Share the challenges, though.
Sure. Pak Sarwono, happy to see you, and congratulations again on the book, ya Pak, ya, in English. That's really fantastic. Now, talking about ambitions, it is true, Jennifer, that we really have big ambitions. But at the same time, it is also true that we have been facing a couple of challenges too in implementing our efforts to protect and restore mangroves in Indonesia. The challenges that I can share with you, first of all, the conservation interests to conserve mangrove does not operate in a vacuum, Jennifer. There are also a lot of interests as well that play out in the same locations where we operate. For example, interests to develop infrastructure, interest for food productions. We heard about food productions by other speakers before. It can be for agriculture, it can be for aquaculture as well. So the challenge is how to actually deal with these multiple interests, which is often also conflicting to one another. And sadly, Jennifer, development interests often takes precedent over conservation interests. So the solutions lies in how that development can be designed in such a way that their impacts to the environment can be minimized if it is not possible to avoid their impacts altogether. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge, Jennifer, is in places where MERA operates. Aquaculture is one of the key drivers of mangrove loss. And there are ways right now to improve shrimp pond productivity that somehow enable the farmers to not expand their shrimp pond into the mangrove forest. And second, there are also now sustainable practice and standards. For example, the Aquaculture Stewardship Council that the farmers and producers can follow and can try to meet the standards, improve their practice if they want to actually access and sell their products to the international market. But unfortunately, right now, there's no incentive from the market yet. So in a way that all the farmers produce sustainable products and they improve the sustainability of their shrimp pond, they haven't really received the premium price. So there is really no incentive for the market, for the farmers and producers to continue improving and meeting the high sustainability standards. And lastly, Jennifer, if I may say, that the challenge is to actually get more support for this important work. Because I mentioned that earlier that mangrove is a very complex ecosystem. And there are a lot of investment that require to collect data, to analyze and to understand the system in different localities, to engage stakeholders at the local level, to increase awareness of the key stakeholders, communities, and things like that. And I think the MERA partners that we have so far has been amazing, that they understand what it takes to do the conservation, and they're very patient and really support the science work. And we really need more partners to support our work.
Well, partners are important, as the panel earlier talked about as well. Collaboration is
Exactly.
the way ahead as well.
Yes.
When you talked about the support that's needed, could you be more specific as well? In what areas? What support do you need for the significant increase in success that you want?
Sure. Well, we can make significant progress toward achieving our goals with additional support in the form of, first, technical capacities, because although we have in-house expertise and we also collaborate with the local university, with the local schools, there's still room and opportunity for joint research, Jennifer. Also technical and advisory support, for example, in areas of coastal hydrodynamics, which include study on the impacts of erosions and abrasions to the mangrove forest. Second is the measurements of greenhouse gas emissions that we heard over and over again being mentioned earlier. What is really the greenhouse gases emissions in mangrove forests in different land use configurations or the different land use contexts. The environmental friendly aquaculture that I talk about, there's also room for joint collaborations because there are a lot of technology and approaches as well that has been developed elsewhere. And lastly, we also heard about plastic, Jennifer, in the earlier talk by our youth in Bali. There's a need of some work on analyzing the content of macro and also micro plastic that found in the mangrove sediment and also in mangrove organisms. And second, as I mentioned earlier, we can make significant progress with more partners because currently there's still funding gap for us to try to implement mangrove protection and conservations in the 3 locations in Indonesia.
The funding gap is definitely real. I mean, we're all aware of that. But increasingly, funders do want to understand the impact that you'll
Yes.
be making. So how do you measure that impact, Ibu? And how do you ensure that the success of today, maybe in this round that we have for the call to action, is sustainable?
Sure. The impacts that we pursue, first of all, of course, in terms of the area that degraded mangrove will be restored. But there are also other impacts that we hold very dear in our heart. First of all, is that the empowerment of the community, because it's very important for us to see the local communities where we work is really able to be on the driver's seat. They're defining their own future. They're defining on the fate of the forest surrounding their villages. So we've also measures our impact in terms of how many communities that be able, for example, to produce a very good village land use development plans. They will be able to develop a very good, high quality village land use plans, able to actually participate actively in protecting the mangrove. But most importantly, we also felt it's very important for us to ensure that our initiative can be sustainable over time by making sure that in the project implementations, it's a part of our DNA, Jennifer, that we engage the stakeholders from the very beginning, so they can participate, they can co-invest, they can invest their own resources, their own time, their own expertise and knowledge, because they are the one that have that kind of knowledge regarding of the local conditions and the local context. We also invest a lot in capacity building and awareness, because once we leave, the knowledge, the awareness will have to be there and in the local community and the local stakeholders. So those are some of the measures that we measure our impacts and our progress in achieving our goals.
You mentioned the stakeholders. There is Pak Sawono here, and then we heard that wonderful Melati earlier as well. So it's intergenerational.
Yes.
How is your solution appealing to the different generations and getting them to come together? Because as you mentioned at the start, Ibu, there are conflicting demands.
Yes. Yeah, I think the key strategy is somehow to package our information, Jennifer, in such a way that it becomes very easy to understand, but also contextualized in the locations where we operate. I think that's very important. Talking to younger generations, using the technology that they know, WhatsApp, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook. I think that's very key because the youth are very well connected right now. Technology is very key. It's a part of their lifestyle. I think for university, of course, we have to use scientific analysis as well, using convincing data that we can defend, which is collected using a very good methodology. With policymakers, we have to be able to translate the goals into something that also appealing to them, because we know that government officials also have what we call the key performance indicators. And the goals, if we translate that into milestones that somehow can be aligned with their goals, we can get the support and they can understand easily. By working together, it can also advance and meet their own goals. So there are a lot of ways that we can actually make our goal and our work can touch all the different stakeholders.
Well, thank you so much for all that sharing. I'm sure very soon I'll see yourself, Pa, and Malati in TikTok, something going together. So thank you so much, everyone. Yes.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the Temasek Shophouse Conversations. I'd like to thank everyone for their time with us today.